So there is another YouTube video I'm going to make. So we want to create a SOAP web service using a WSDL contract. It is a criminal record management system. So I want to explain how we want to create it. So you can see here the client is police station. So they want to use this web service. What is this? Criminal record management system. And there is a tech stack. You can see the technology stack. We are going to use Java 8, Spring Framework, Hibernate. JAX WS is it is a web service abstraction. The abstraction that they are going to use JAX WS web service framework. So we will create a WSDL file and XML data. Maven is for building a project. Database is Oracle and Tomcat is for our application server to deploy our web service. So the criminal record, first you need to create a table in the database. The criminals, they will have ID. Every criminal will have an ID. We can recognize them using their ID, name, and what kind of crime they are committed. So we need to specify and which city they belong, and the status. What is the status of the criminal? Whether the criminal is in jail or is walking outside, or is still is he arrested? He is not arrested. So what is the status? Status attribute is there, or he is under suspicion or monitoring. We can give any status here. Okay. We can understand the criminal. Criminal, there can be anything. They can be organized criminal, or street gangs, or political criminals, or contract killer criminals. So many kinds of criminals are there. So we can also add the type of criminal. We can additional attribute if you want to add additional attribute. So the WSDL operations, you can see how many operations. First, generally the client wants to see the list of criminal IDs. So we need to provide a method operation, get all the criminal list by ID using their ID, and generally they will also search the criminals. Search option should be there. So there should be another web service operation, search criminal operation. Register criminal. So once they arrest any criminal, right, they have to register the criminal in the database. So they need to call the register criminal web service endpoint. Okay, update a status. As I told you, the status of the criminal should be updated. Delete criminal, list all criminals. These are all the operations. So sample WSDL file, you can see. First operation is get criminals by ID, by their ID. And what is the input? We will pass the get criminal request. It is the input. Generally, for getting criminal information, what we need to pass? We need to pass the ID of a criminal, if we know the ID, right? So that is the thing. And next thing is, generally in jail, every criminal will be marked with an ID number. So using an ID, we can actually get the criminal data. So this is just a one operation. So the same way we need to create a multiple operations, operations XML attributes. We need to form the complete WSDL file, which we call it as a contract, right? We also call it as a contract. So you can see here we have multiple operations. We are going to create an XML file, and the request XML, you see how we actually provide the request. You can see envelope. We need to pass the get criminal request and the criminal ID. Every operation is represented using an attribute tag, and you want to pass the ID. You can pass ID 104, ID 106, okay, 108. You can pass these IDs, the criminal IDs, right? You can pass the numbers like 10, 12, okay, or 15, 16, 18, 20. So you can pass all these IDs, for example, criminal IDs, and you can actually render the response data. whether the criminal is a terrorist, whether the criminal is political criminal, whether the criminal is a contract killer. There are many ways to provide the data. These are all some examples for criminal system. So we need to create a service interface. You can see criminal service. So we need to specify all the operations: get criminal by ID, get the criminal data by ID, list all criminals. Just sometimes the client wants to see all the criminal data irrespective of their ID and everything. They simply click on the criminal data search button and it will result everything. And register the criminal, update the status, delete criminal. You see how simple it is. Also, you need to mark the interface using @web service. So here we are using JAX RWS annotation. So as I told you, right, JAX RWS annotation, it will provide abstraction and annotation. So we are going to use the same implementation for JAX WS SOAP implementation style. Web service implementation style is JAX RWS. So we are using @web service annotation. And service implementation, so we are going to implement that criminal interface. Criminal service implementation classes implements criminal service, and we have to auto-wire the DAO, criminal DAO, data access object, and you need to create a getters and setters. You need to create a getter setters for each and every operation that is there inside the criminal service interface. Okay, we have a get criminal by ID and list all criminal method, and register criminal method, update status method, delete criminal method. So these are all the operations, right? You need to create all the getter setters required for this DAO class. And here we go, the Hibernate DAO. Hibernate, what we are going to do here, public criminal find, see how it will return. Return session factory, get session, and it is straightforward. We did not create a complete code here. Actual DAO, how it calls the database and how it gets the data, you can see here how it works, the DAO. So that's how we're going to implement using a web service, this web service. So you can see the high level flow, SOAP client, SOAP endpoint, okay, and Spring service. Basically, when we publish this WSDL as a web service, we will get the endpoints. So we will provide the endpoints to the client, and they will use that endpoint, and they'll hit the web service using a XML request. Okay, I showed you some example, right? You can pass criminal IDs number 10, number 12, number 15, 16, 18, 20. You can pass any ID, you can get the data. Okay. And the criminal records, they'll fetch the endpoint. It will actually render the response, and you can see the response. See, the flow is SOAP client. You want to use the SOAP client. Generally, the web service will be integrated with the user interface generally. But for testing, you can use the SOAP client, SOAP endpoint, Spring service, Hibernate DAO. Okay, and endpoint 2, it will go to the Spring service, and finally DAO class. Then DAO class, you will create a session factory object. From the session factory object, you will call respective methods. Okay, so that way, basically the data you are going to get, you will map to entity, and vice versa. So you use the Hibernate for the purpose of mapping the database data to entity and entity data to database table. So that is the purpose of Hibernate DAO, and you will get the response in the form of XML. Remember one thing, so here we're going to deal with the XML data, not the JSON data. If you want to deal with the JSON data, you need to create a REST service, but it is a SOAP web service. It is a little bit difficult to implement this web service comparing to the REST service, but it is more secure because it deals with the XML data, and you can also configure multiple security properties here. It is most widely used web service in the banking and financial systems because they prefer to use the SOAP web service rather than simple REST services. It is a standard web service, secure web service. It deals with the XML data. So it is very useful for banking and financial services. As usual, this criminal record system, the banks, they use this kind of web service most of the things. Okay, I hope you understand. Okay, you can see the sample I explained this. Okay, I hope you understand this, right? Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.